Hey Gators and sports fans, get all your Gator talk, news, analysis, and opinions on the Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning podcast. Find us on your favorite podcast platform or watch us on Facebook Live between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. every weekday. Pod Up, because we are Gator fans. So say it's great to be a Florida Gator.
Good morning and welcome to a Thursday edition of the program. Glad you're along for the ride. It's Pod Up with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. It's Thursday. That means we'll have our college football analyst Brent Beaird on. Second today, we'll have our Baker Sporting Goods High School Roundup with Marty Pallman from the prepzone.com. March Madness is in full effect. Gators tip off at noon today against the Aggies. A big game. If you missed it last night, there were some good games. Virginia Tech blows a huge lead against Clemson. It goes into overtime. They hit a game-winning three-pointer to move on. But it's a fun time to get the TPC. We'll have weather issues all weekend, all long, but they'll try to tee it up a little bit this morning with the window. But in the meantime, we're going to go to the Titan MR hotline, and we're joined by our college football analyst, Brent Beaird. Good morning, Brent. How are you?
Shane, I'm doing well. An update on a few things you just said, that there is a window of opportunity in the Jacksonville area now, and upon evasion for them to play, so they're going to be able to do that, but it's probably going to be a lot of stops and starts. And it's a shame for the golf tournament, but we're in I'm sure Gainesville will probably similar, but we're in a drought over here and need 3 or 4 days of rain, so that's what we're going to get. SEC tournament started yesterday. Big crowd last night. I was pleasantly surprised with that for Tom Crean, for the Georgia coach's last game. They just basically gave up with that one. But as Shane said, that noon game, and again, they're on Eastern time playing in Tampa, so we don't have to. So it's not like we have to wait till 1 o'clock. It's on at noon, but Shane, they really need to get a good start. This A&M team under Buzz Williams is playing as well as anybody. So that is a lot of people have said this is an elimination game for the loser.
Yep, A&M's on the bubble. I don't know if a lot of Gator fans understand that, but they are. And so it's a big game. I heard where A&M has an opportunity to be the first team to ever lose 8 games in a row to make the NCAA tournament. So it'll be interesting to see what happens today. But you're right, the Gators need to play well and advance and play Auburn. Brent, we're in full swing with a lot of places around the country are already in their spring football. We got some spring game dates you want to talk about? Yeah,
certainly do. For the SEC, Missouri is coming up next week. They started early, so some teams do that. They start early so they can end early. On the 9th of April, Auburn, Kentucky, and A&M. We've got a slew of games on the 16th, Easter weekend. Florida, Arkansas, Alabama, South Carolina, Georgia, Mississippi State, and Vanderbilt. April 23rd is LSU and Ole Miss. Tennessee does not have a game this year for the spring. We'll get into that a little bit with our notes. Portland State has their spring game today. And then a week from today, Shane, is Georgia Tech has their spring game. It's on the SEC network, and we wanted to mention Florida State's spring game is on the 9th of April. And Miami is on the April the 16th. So for our listeners, you might want to know when some of the spring games are to make note of that this year.
We got a question here for you, Brent, already on Facebook Live, brought to you by Melvin Law, the only official law firm partner with Florida Gators. Andy asked, I know there have been some rule changes. He asked, Brent, when will the new NCAA game clock rules being considered be implemented? If he's talking about what I brought up the other day about the clock basically never stopping, it seems like.
Yeah.
I absolutely hope that never passes because I think it's crap. I know it'll shorten the game, but you're going to shorten a lot of scores and you're going to shorten a lot of good offenses.
Yeah, well, you are. That's the byproduct of doing that. Andy, it's a good question. They have to go through all the appropriate committees. So if that happens, I don't know if they might. I don't know if they've got time to implement it for this year. We'll check on that. It may be more likely for next year. But there are several committees these rule changes have to go in front of before it does. Now, one of the changes in the rules that people will notice, I think, very quickly, defensive holding would remain a 10-yard penalty, but with the rule change would carry an automatic first down. Shane, how about that? Mm-hmm. So that's one thing that would be crippling, frankly, to a defense to go through that. And again, what they propose and what actually comes about sometimes can be two different things. They're still tinkering with targeting. They're tinkering with these ridiculous, to get a break, the player falls down, pretends like he's injured. They're trying to deal with some of these things, Shane, they do a good job with, some they don't, which is kind of what you're talking about with the clock. I mean, I think what the intention is, they're trying to speed up the game and keep it from being a 4-hour and 30-minute football game. But sometimes you can really affect the game if you're not careful by doing that.
Yeah, I have issues with the clock. I hated it when they changed the rule back in college when, I don't remember how many years ago it was, when you ran out of bounds. Back when I played, the clocks never started again until the ball was snapped.
Right.
Now they start the clock like the NFL once the ball is spotted. So I guess I got used to that. But this nonsense about incomplete passes and the clock still running, that makes absolutely no sense to me at all. Speaking of targeting, John says he's disappointed they didn't do more to address targeting. I think they will. I don't know if you saw it yesterday, and this kind of made me think of targeting in college football. So Buddy Boeheim, I don't know if you saw that at Syracuse. He's suspended for today's game against Duke because he kind of took a cheap shot at a guy on a rebound. They didn't call a foul in the game, but they go back and review it after the game and suspend him. I'm not saying what he did was right, but I don't agree with suspending him because if let's use football, if they go and review that and it's targeting, he just misses the rest of that game. He didn't miss an entire game. He'll miss the first half of the next game, depending on when it happened. But I had a problem with them suspending him for the entire game against Duke when it's not a reviewable play. So I don't know. I'm kind of going off on a different tangent there. But did you see that, Brent?
Yeah. Listen, can you imagine that happening in football, and a major player would be suspended for a really important game coming up? But to Shane's point, Jay Billis did the same thing. Jay Billis did a brief video where he said basically the same thing that you did. He said, "I'm not discounting that the guy did something wrong, but he said within the allowed protocol of the game, it was not called at that point, and he thought that they should let it go." So a lot of different opinions on that one. But yes, that's the Coach Boeheim's son who's involved with that. I think what I'm hearing more in the targeting now is, okay, give the team a 15-yard penalty, but don't throw the guy out of the game. What I'm hearing is more I'm curious if you are too, the pendulum is swinging back a little bit toward people are seeing that it's it really makes no difference if you throw a guy out for the next half or the second half or the next half of the next game. So that should be amended. That's kind of what I'm hearing, but more than anything else with targeting right now.
Yeah, I think they need to, like, almost with technical fouls, give them maybe 2 targeting, and then you're going to have to miss some game time, because it's just not fair for these defenders, because
Correct.
The way receivers dive after a ball, now it wasn't going to be head to head, but then it becomes head to head because he dove for the ball. The defenders have no chance. Brent, I saw something interesting you sent. Army Navy is thinking about playing the game in Orlando. That would be very cool.
Well, it really would be. Orlando is either has bid on it or going to bid on the game. Now, this is 2027, so it's still a little bit of ways. But and the people I've talked to, I'm curious if you've ever gone, but the people I've talked to who have gone, I do a podcast with my friend Travis Ryer, and he has been to 3 of them, and he said in the cold weather games really give it a different feel. But frankly, Shane, for say Jacksonville or Orlando, with the amount of military in this state, particularly here in Jacksonville, I think that game would be incredibly well attended. And frankly, if you got it down here, that would probably be a bucket list game for a lot of people.
Yeah, I have friends that have been and say it's unbelievable. I'm not a big guy who likes to go to games, but that's one game I would like to attend at some point before I kick the bucket. OU is going to put a statue up of Baker Mayfield. I'm assuming they already have statues of their other Heisman winners, right?
Yeah, and this would be after the spring game on Saturday, April the 2nd. So this was just announced a few days ago that they would reveal this after the game. So I thought that was interesting. We're getting more and more statues. I guess you got what, Shane? You've either got a statue or you've got some kind of a ring of honor. And in some schools, you have both. So
right.
A statue for Baker coming up.
We got a couple of Facebook Lives here. Dan says, how about suspend the referee that missed the basketball call? And Rick says, Shane likes football rules from the old leather helmet days when he played. There are some I do. I like some of the new rules as well, Rick.
Sure.
So appreciate that. Brent, before we actually, I think we talked about it last week, but it's official now. Herb Street is going to do the Thursday night game, NFL game. I think some people like it, but then there's some of those people that think he needs to stick with the college game.
Well, I mean, he's good enough to do both. And matter of fact, he and Chris Fowler did an NFL game earlier this year, and I understand they were very good. They've got really good chemistry. Now, here's what's going to be different about this. The NFL, this game is going to be on Amazon. Now, the trick's going to be, is to be able to access it.
Yeah.
Will people know what to do? And look, people need to get used to this, because in the expansion of the playoffs, this is not just going to be ESPN and CBS. What you're going to have is you're going to have several different entities who are going to be bidding and involved in carrying some of when the playoffs expand. So it may be Hulu. We mentioned Amazon. It may be Facebook. That's going to be a part of it. Now, the other part of this too is with Amazon getting the NFL Thursday night deal. I'm hoping that for college football, they will quit being afraid of some of these dog games NFL has on Thursday night and step up the plate and have more Thursday night games. So, and as far as Kurt's concerned, I mean, Shane, you travel obviously now doing games. what you're talking about here is Kerr's going to have to be on site by Wednesday for Thursday, and then obviously for Saturday, you basically got to be on site or close to being on site on Friday. But obviously for guys like Herbstreit, that's why they have jets. So that will be interesting. That's going to be a pretty busy week for him, is it not?
It is. And, going back to the Thursday night college game, I really think for all the people that love college football and all the bitching and complaining that the people out west always talk about how, the Heisman voters never get to see our kids play. Well, the Pac-12 should play a game every Thursday night.
Good
so
point.
That way, at 7:30, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and then everybody on the East Coast, they can get them some exposure. I think that would solve a lot of problems. Brent, before we jump into around the SEC, John has a question here on Facebook Live brought to you by Melvin Law. He says, Brent, what are your top 5 schools that you are looking at the most going into spring football?
Oh, that's a great question. I think probably a lot of the ones with new coaches. I think you could throw Miami in there. The continued improvement for Florida State. I mean, what's Southern Cal going to be with the changes they've got? We mentioned Oklahoma a few minutes ago with Venables going over there. I think that's a real possibility. I mean, for the SEC, and we'll go over some of the questions here, but I mean, goodness, where is Auburn going to be with all these changes? I mean, obviously, Billy Napier and what Florida's going to do would be one, too. So, I throw a little bit of SEC and some others in there, but it's going to be a fascinating spring for some of these teams.
Yeah, we got a lot of people here telling us, get a smart TV. You'll have no problem with the streaming. I got a smart TV, but it's the dude running the smart TV that doesn't know how to do it all.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's a hell of a lot smarter than the guy running it. At Chris Doring Mortgage, they do mortgage lending right, helping home buyers throughout Gainesville and North Central Florida. Call Chris Doring Mortgage today, 352-244-0840. Speaking with Brent Beaird on the Titan More Hotline, we'll have marvelous Marty Pallman join us second portion of the program, talking about high school sports. Marty also does a lot of color for Gator softball. All right, Brent, let's start with Alabama. They got a lot of holes to fill, but they also have a lot of dudes coming back.
Yep, they do. They start tomorrow. They go. It's funny how Saban does this, but he will do one practice, and then they're off for spring break next week. So that basically gives him an opportunity to caution them, shall we say, probably in a very loud voice, about what they need to do and not do next week. So, but look, there's still a lot to do with Alabama to figure things out. Who's going to step up at wide receiver? Will JoJo Earl be healthy? Got to find an offensive tackle. As good as they're going to be on defense, there's still some questions at inside linebacker and cornerback, and also at running back. They're going to be limited because they had so many guys, Chase McClellan, Rodell Williams, for instance, who were injured, had surgery. Jahmyr Gibbs, the Georgia Tech transfer, we understand has been tremendous. So a lot of issues for Alabama in the spring.
Yeah, that is true. I do think that's interesting that Nick has them practice one day and then they're off for about 7 days. Who knows what he tells them. Up in Fayetteville, the Hogs coming off a really great year. They lost a lot of good players, but they had their quarterback, KJ Jefferson, coming back. Yeah,
they start Sunday, which is kind of odd, but that's when they start. Jefferson really is tremendous. Now, he has got to lose some weight and play at more 230. He was probably what, Shane? 240 or 250?
Easily.
Yes. So, I mean, when you're like 6'5", as the way he is, your frame holds more weight, but he needs to get that down. They've got to replace Treylon Burks, one of the better receivers anywhere. Jaden Hasselwood, the Oklahoma transfer, is one of the guys who may be in there to do so. Jordan Dominic, a Georgia Tech transfer, decided Monday night that he was going to Arkansas. So that's a nice pickup for them. Drew Sanders from Alabama, linebacker, who's also going to be at Arkansas. Is this going to be another good football team coming up this year?
Yeah, as you mentioned, I'm looking at it right here. Arkansas's picked up a transfer from Oklahoma, Alabama, LSU, Georgia, South Florida, and Texas State. Speaking of Texas State, they beat the number one team in baseball last night, the Texas Longhorns.
Wow.
I don't know if you saw that, but the pitcher struck out to end the game, and he was doing the upside down horns to their dugout as they were celebrating.
No. Oh,
yeah.
My.
Yeah, so the number one team went down last night in one of those midweek games. The Gators, they crank up March 15th, I believe. A lot of question marks. I mean, I think a lot of people are excited with Billy Napier, see how his staff handles practice, but it's going to be an interesting spring, no question about it, Brent.
No doubt. I mean, there are just a bunch of questions, obviously, at quarterback, and Richardson, we understand, will be limited. He's got a lingering leg injury that he's got to be taken care of. I still think he is an immense talent. Once he's able to get healthy, Jack Miller, the third from Ohio State, that will be interesting. So, and there are a whole bunch more besides that we will get into, and I know Shane has already done that. But yeah, I'm with you. I will be fascinated how Napier will do the spring. I think he'll do a really good job.
Yeah, I'm anxious to see his rotation, obviously at the quarterback position, because I believe they have 5 kids now on scholarship. They have another one coming in the fall, so it'll be 6. That's hard to get guys reps when you don't know who your guy is. And as you mentioned, I've said it all along. What concerns me about Anthony is his health. He was hurt a lot in high school, and he had a meniscus deal, and it's going to probably keep him out of the spring. I had a meniscus deal after the Florida State game in '91. Didn't do anything and played in the Sugar Bowl. Didn't play great. Probably shouldn't have played, but I mean, obviously he's a better athlete and runs around and stuff. But it's amazing to me that it's taking this long to get him back to somewhat 100%. So I'm guessing right now, coming out of this spring, having heard that he's probably not going to participate a lot, I'm leaning towards Jack Miller, Brent. And I don't know a damn thing about Jack Miller.
No, and frankly, none of us do. The Ohio State transfer. So, I mean, he's a 4-star prospect. He was invited to the Elite 11. He's got a good arm, athletic, leadership. That's impressed Napier and the staff. But you're right, Shane. Until we see him on the field, we don't know, do we?
No, we don't. But here's one thing that we can hang our hat on, and it's kind of going out on a limb here and hoping. The last guy that transferred from Ohio State because he couldn't see the field was pretty damn good at LSU.
Yeah. Because
I tell you right now, the kid, the C.J. Stroud kid at Ohio State is elite. I mean, he is an elite thrower of the football. Nobody's playing in front of him until he graduates. So for the Gator fans, let's keep our fingers crossed that Jack Miller can turn out and be halfway as good as Joe Burrow. Georgia Bulldogs are defending national champs. What's going on up there?
Well, they've got some, I think, offensive line issues as far as just replacing guys. Delvin Willock, 6'7", 335. He's a redshirt sophomore. That is a guy to kind of look for. It'd be hard to miss him. They've got a lot to do on the inside linebacker crew, replacing Kobe Dean, Quay Walker, and Channing Tyndall. Boy, they're losing some incredible talent defensively. Eric Gilbert is back with Georgia. People have missed this. He's been there basically since January, and they're probably going to play him at wide receiver. Now, they've got Brock Bowers and Darnell Washington at tight end. Gilbert's played tight end, but I think they're going to move him around a little bit. He's a tremendous athlete. But Shane, as you mentioned before, Gilbert's issue is not talent. inability. Gilbert's issue is just the mental outlook of the game. And I'm not saying he's a dumb kid, but he stretched imagination. I'm just saying he just had issues. And at some point, hopefully those issues will be taken care of, and he can be a productive player.
Yes, he's very, very talented. So hopefully he gets everything right for his case. Kentucky, I say it every year, Brent. You go to the SEC media days, you have the so-called analysts, talking all this about Kentucky. I've had trouble buying the hype over the years. I'm just dumb, I guess, because Mark Stoops has done a phenomenal job there. They continue to kick our butt. But he loses another coordinator. It seems like he loses coordinators every year, but he's done a hell of a job at Kentucky.
Listen, it's been amazing. He'll have a statue of him when he retires. Now they will have a new offensive coordinator. Liam Cohen went back to the Rams, and they do have a new guy in Rich Scangarello, who comes from the 49ers. They've got a new offensive line coach because the old one went to Alabama. But as Shane said, they've really done a good job with this program. They opened camp Tuesday, so they're up and going. They won 10 games in 2018. They won double digits last year. And they've got, Shane, I'm sure you remember this kid, DeAndre Square, the inside linebacker who had 13 tackles against Florida. I know a lot of Gator fans did. He's back. This is his 6th year. So that they've got some defensive talent coming back. Where they've really improved is offensively. And we've got a little stat. I'll make this real quick. 2 teams, most improved offense. Tennessee went from 108 to number 7. It's amazing. And Kentucky had a 60-plus number improvement themselves. So that shows you how quickly offenses can improve from one year to the next.
Yeah, LSU Tigers go out in the transfer portal, get Jaden Daniels, quarterback from Arizona State, I think he's a decent player. I don't think he's all that, but I was surprised that he went to LSU. What about you, Brent?
A little bit of that too. There were several schools who thought they might wind up and get him. And as Shane said a few minutes ago, that is going to be a pretty crowded quarterback room. And the reason is that, remember, they talked Miles Brennan into coming back. Garrett Nussmeier, the redshirt freshman, played some last year, and Walker Howard, who they had Walker Howard in the recruiting video, if you remember that.
Right.
Yeah, he and Brian Kelly dancing. So, look, and again, and there are several schools. Auburn's one of them too, that have got like 5 or 6 quarterbacks in the room. And as Shane has always taught us, Shane, if you've got multiple quarterbacks in the quarterback room, do you really have one starter?
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good at all. All right, Brent. I want to jump down to, as you mentioned, Tennessee. Tennessee did a tremendous job under Heupel last year. Why are they not having a spring game this year?
They've got construction going on with the stadium and some other conflicts. I'm not quite sure. I did email a Tennessee beat writer friend who said all this is legitimate. It's not just he didn't want to show anything in the spring, as some coaches have done. I've always thought that was disappointing to fan bases, but unfortunately, that's the way it's going to be. They won't have a spring game. They do promote, and this is kind of unusual, but they did it. Kelsey Pope, one of their analysts, to wide receivers coach. Several schools tried to get him. They decided instead of losing him, they would promote him. And Hendon Hooker, one of the big things for the spring, they've got to find more receivers. They're replacing Velus Jones, and they've got to improve their red zone defense. The opponents travel to the ball's 20-yard line 50 times last year, and there were only 4 where they didn't give up points. It's not too good, is it, Shane? So there's a lot of improvement on that red zone defense needed.
Yeah, as we mentioned earlier, one of the teams that you're looking at, around the country, what the mess that Auburn is right now, it should be an interesting spring down on the Plains.
Listen, there are so many questions down there. It's just frankly unbelievable, even above and beyond whoever world the quarterback's going to be. They've got a lot of guys have left the defensive and offensive lines. They've got a bunch of new coaches. So again, in Auburn, spring games like the 9th of April. So that's going to be one of the teams to really watch to see how they rebound.
Brent, the team to me that has the most pressure on them of anybody in America for next year, the Aggies of A&M, with what Jimbo has done with the number 1 recruiting class, and they have yet to win the SEC West. Am I crazy to think that they have more pressure than anyone?
Nope, I think you're right about that. I mean, they had all that hoopla last year and still ended up 8-4. They just lost one of their better receivers in DeMond Demas. He needed to go. He had a domestic assault, domestic violence incident, so he is. I don't think he'll be back. As Shane said, they've got some incredible freshmen who are coming in. Denver Harris is one of the freshmen that the cornerback they really like. They've got to get more. Their quarterback and wide receiver is going to be very interesting. Haynes King, Max Johnson from LSU, Connor Wegman, Anaya Smith is probably one of their best athletes. He's a slot receiver. They think Evan Stewart can come in there and really help them. But that's going to be fascinating for A&M. Who is a quarterback? Who is he going to be throwing to?
Yeah, Brent, before we let you go, we got a question here from Jack on Facebook Live. He says, does Florida have a real chance at the Manning kid, or is that mostly smoke? Every time I want to write it off, something else comes out about giving me hope. Here's my thoughts on that. Mm-hmm. Billy has a good relationship with the Manning family being there in Louisiana. Right. But my opinion, I was going to say Eli, Arch, he's going to go where he can be the quarterback and have a chance to win a national championship immediately. Sure. You know, his uncles didn't have a chance to win anything. So right. I believe Archie, they're going to sit there. This is just my personal opinion, and I know the Manning family. I believe he will end up at either Alabama, Texas, which Texas doesn't give you a chance of winning a title, but he's got a good relationship with Sarkisian. And I think it's going to come down between Alabama and Georgia. That's just my gut feeling.
Yeah. In that basis, what we're seeing with a lot of the other recruiting guys, it would be those 3, Alabama, Texas, and Georgia. Now, I'll say this real quick so we get to Marty, is there was some talk, I haven't heard this official, about David Cutcliffe coming to Texas as an analyst. And as Shane knows, and some of our listeners maybe, the Mannings have always had a tremendous relationship with David Cutcliffe, either at Ole Miss or Tennessee. So if that happens, that would be a real inducement. So, but I'm pretty sure that, unless Shane, you've heard it differently, I don't think that's official yet.
No, not at all. Not at all. But Brent, good stuff as always. Time goes by way too fast when you're on the program. Have a great weekend. Stay dry, and we'll talk to you next week.
Good. Can't wait, bud. We look forward to hearing Marty, too. Always enjoy it.
Yep, that's Brent Beaird joining us on the Titan Tomorrow Hotline. Going to take a time out, come back, talk a little high school sports with marvelous Marty Pallman. You're watching and listening to Pod with Matthews in the Morning.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, won't back down. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise. QC Kinetics, Live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Great Clips. It's gonna be great. Our Gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Celebration Point Town Center, South State Bank, Chris Doring Mortgage, Silverback Concrete Co. Some of our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Adams Rib Company, Doreen Wiebe Realtor, Caldwell Banker MM Parish, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Aikido America, Style Cuts, Big Mills Cheesesteaks. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, visit potupwithshane.com and click the advertise button. Again, thank you to all the great businesses that support the show. If you like what we are doing here, make sure you follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Welcome back to the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. At South State Bank, we understand that small businesses need a community business partner they can rely on. South State has 4 convenient Alachua County locations. South State Bank, banking forward member FDIC. I want to thank Brent Beaird for joining us. Now we're going to go back to the Titan Number Hotline, and we're going to be joined by marvelous Marty Pallman from the Prep Zone, talking a little high school sports from the Baker Sporting Goods Roundup. Marty, sorry we woke you up this morning, my man. Appreciate you joining the program.
Yeah,
I know you like to sleep.
I do, but I'll get up to talk to you, QB. It's good to be with you as always.
Well, before we get started here talking about high school sports, because we got some state champs in basketball, baseball, and softball start, I want our listeners to know that, you know, they may not realize, but you also do a lot of color for Gator softball. And so how's that been going? You enjoy covering those girls?
Yeah, I do. And, you know, it's always nice to be involved with the University of Florida and, you know, get some work in with them. And, you know, for softball, about 2 years ago, they started bringing me in for a few games. And it kind of just one of those things where I know the announcers and they'll say, why don't you come do some games with us? And, you know, there's so many softball games that we're on radio sometimes, and we're always on internet, FloridaGators.com. So if the game isn't on radio, it's online. So I already went to UCF a few weeks ago. We had a tournament down there where the Gators beat the Golden Knights, or they don't like to be called that, apparently. I found out they're just the Knights now.
They're not golden at all.
No, they're not. And Florida beat them 12-11. So we had a good weekend in Orlando, and then last weekend back here in Gainesville, Gators took care of business. But they're starting SEC play this weekend with Mississippi State, so we'll see against the Bulldogs. We'll see how that goes. I think Florida's going to they're good. I mean, they have, the pitching has been on fire. They're hitting the ball. I think they're going to be really good. Now, the SEC, you know, it's tough as always, but I think the Gators have got a real chance. And the SEC tournament's going to be in Gainesville in May too, so that'll be helpful as well.
All right, we got a question here, softball question, believe it or not, before we get into high school. Andy asks, Marty, love your softball work. Is Kendra Falvey the best freshman softball player in Gator history, and will she still be hitting 500 at the season's end?
I mean, she is something. I can't think of another freshman that's come on for Florida this quickly. I mean, she is just. I mean, it's just her speed. She can get a bunt single. I mean, like half her hits are probably bunts, but she also hits the ball out of the ballpark, and that's what's surprising about it. She's not very big, but you know, just like anybody in softball, if you have the right swing, you can hit it out of the park. But if you get it into the gaps, you know, she's going to run all day. And I don't know, she's still hitting 500, and they played 22 games, so I wouldn't. It's tough to keep that up, but I wouldn't put it past her with the way she plays the game. And Skylar Wallace, the girl who transferred in from Alabama, she's another one who's just fast. I mean, she had an inside the park home run Saturday, and she got around the bases. The ball wasn't even back on the infield. So they have some speed this year, the Gators do, to go along with the normal amount of power that they have with players like Eccles still. They're playing third base.
I thought I saw, maybe I read it incorrectly, but does Skylar Wallace already have 20 stolen bases?
Yes, she does. In fact, she has not been caught yet. She's 20 for 20. And Kendra Falby, I think, is 15 of 17. So, yeah, they've got a nice 1-2 punch. They still have Hannah Adams at second. She's pretty fast herself. So it's a good top 3 or 4 of the lineup really for them. And again, Charlotte Eccles bats fourth, so you got your RBI person there in the 4th spot. So their lineup is pretty solid. Now, we'll see when it gets in the SEC competition, but they've been playing really well. 21-1, you can't argue with that too much.
No. So our last question, softball. Are you on the call this weekend, Marty?
No, I'm not actually. So,
okay.
Kyle,
all right.
Kyle Cook will be there.
Okay. All right. Let's switch gears. High school basketball has come to an end. We got some state champs. Were you surprised the Bradford Tornadoes kind of came out of nowhere? Did they have like a 500 record or maybe a losing record going into the playoffs?
Actually, yes. Well, they were just over 500.
Just over 500.
They were 8. Yeah, they were 8-10 going into the last week or so of the regular season, and they ended up going into the district tournament. Right around 500 at 10-10. They won the district tournament. They beat Bell, and then they went into the state playoffs and beat Bell in the first round. They beat Madison County to advance to Lakeland, and then took care of Hawthorne last week in Paxton. But they did not have a game closer than 10 points in the state playoffs, and that was Madison County in their region final. They beat Hawthorne by 18. They trailed 2-0 in that game, and they didn't trail after that. They just took over against Paxton. They never trailed. I mean, they got up big, about 22 in the first half, and kind of cruised. Thinking about it, at first you think it's a surprise because of their record, but you look at their team, and it was just a matter of they didn't have their whole team, according to their coach, and they got it together right around district tournament time, and that's when you needed it, and they won the last 8 games. So that's how it works. And they're leaving 1A now, and I think I've read a lot of folks say, well, it's a 4A team and 1A and all this other stuff, but you still got to go out and win the games. And Bradford was pretty dominant in that spot. The fact is, they've never even been to a state championship game, hadn't been to a Final Four in almost 50 years. So a pretty historic season for them to win the state title in 1A.
Yeah. Ruzoga State Farm Office is a team of dedicated insurance professionals ready to help life go right with the right insurance options for you and your family. They offer the essential needs of auto, home, life, and health insurance. Visit them at ogreinsurance.com or give them a call, 352-240-1779. Speaking with marvelous Marty Pallman here on from the prepzone.com, talking a little high school sports. Joseph says on Facebook Live, their last regular season game was the first game. They were 100% healthy and had all their starters on the court together since like week 3 of the season. But yeah, you're right. I still haven't figured out how Bradford is a 1A school, but that's changed. So real quick, also I want to give a shout out to Charlie Ward, my man Charlie Ward. They won a state title at Florida High, FSUS. I think that's his first title. Were you down there for that game at all, Marty?
I saw them play actually the semifinals. I was down there because that was the day they played right before Bradford and Hawthorne played. So, I saw them. In fact, they were down big in the semifinal round against Tampa Catholic and came back and won that by 2. And then the state championship game, they pulled out late too. So they had a couple of close games, but at first I was looking across the court going, I know who that is. That's Charlie Ward.
Yeah.
Almost forgot he was the coach there. Then when you realize that, you look at him and go, oh yeah, that's definitely Charlie Ward. But yeah, that's a nice story because, of his career at FSU and everything. And he's become, big as a basketball coach, and good for him. I mean, that program in Tallahassee's been pretty good. So, that's that's his, as you said, his first state title. So, congratulations to them. And there weren't a lot of other teams around this area that made it to Lakeland. I guess Ponte Vedra made it to the state title game from Jacksonville area, and Andrew Jackson. But again, we had some South Florida teams that won as well. But it was kind of an interesting mix for state champs this year in boys basketball.
Yeah. All right. Baseball and softball is cranking up. Who in the North Central Florida area do you expect to be the teams to beat or the teams to make a little run this year?
I think you're going to see for baseball, or first off, is that what you're asking? Buchholz, I think, again, they're already off to a 4-1 start. They have to play the district with all those Tallahassee teams, Leon and Childs and all that. But I think they're going to have a pretty challenging schedule, but they're going to be pretty good. Santa Fe looks like, and I know they've lost a couple players, but I think Santa Fe, they're off to a good start as well, around 4-1. So they were a team last year that won 23 games and got upset the first round of the playoff. So I think that they're going to be up there again as well. And this year in 1A, it looks like maybe Union County would be a team in 1A to watch this year. I don't know how many of the baseball teams. Newberry, I think, will be up there again, but Newberry does have to replace 4 or 5 seniors from last year. So they're still rated pretty highly, but the defending 1A state champs. But I would say that Newberry in the 1A classification is the team to watch as well. And so is Union. Union County's been pretty good too the last few years.
Marty, before we let you go, the FHSA passed the new rule, the metro versus suburban or what have you.
Yeah.
You got all these new districts. What have you been hearing from coaches about the decision to go that route?
Well, I think the coaches have been wanting to do this for a while. And I think if you ask the coaches, they just want to go public-private. We've talked about this. And, have a public class and a private class. And I don't think the FHSA is ever going to do that. I just don't think we're going to see that in Florida. But maybe this is the next best thing. I don't know. Other than that, I mean, it's definitely different. And, let me ask you, what do you think about it? Because you have to cover this stuff all the time.
I haven't really looked into who's where. I'm a big proponent of privates play privates, publics play publics in the playoffs. I don't care what you do in the regular season. And I know people's arguments now are these public schools go out and recruit just like the privates. Okay, but still, it's apples and oranges because you can go recruit all you want, but the private schools have way more that they can offer some of these kids. Yeah. So I think it's a step in the right direction. Like I said, I haven't looked at see who plays who or what district because they're back to districts now, right?
Right, they're back to districts, and really what it consists of is, a lot of the Miami teams, Fort Lauderdale, Orlando, and Jacksonville, and Tampa. So I mean that's a lot of where the teams are coming from for the metro district and the metro districts, and then you're going to have your suburban districts, which Gainesville is in the suburban. So the east sides with Newberry and Santa Fe and North Marion. Gainesville, I believe, is with Buchholz. So, that's kind of what we're looking at. And then the rural classification is going to stay the same. The smaller towns, they'll play in what they call one. I think it's still 1A, actually. Yeah, it's still going to be one. No, I have to look at it, too, because I've been so into basketball. But, yeah, it's at least it's different. I mean, like I said, I just don't think they're ever going to have public and private, but at least to me it says, hey, we want to do something different. Actually, it's going to be called 1R. That's what it is, one rural. So
yeah, because I think you got like 5M, which is 5 metro, 5S, which is 5 suburban. So it's something that we're going to have to study to see who's in what districts now. So it should be interesting. It's something that we can talk about as we move forward when spring ball starts. So, Marty, good stuff as always, buddy. You guys on any baseball or softball calls here coming up?
Well, because of the weather, a lot of games were canceled this week already, the next few days. So no games the rest of this week, but next week I'll be at Buchholz Wednesday night. They're playing North Marion, so that should be a pretty good baseball game coming up next week. North Marion was the state runner-up last year, so that'll be our next baseball broadcast coming up next week, Wednesday.
Good stuff as always, buddy. We appreciate you taking the time, getting up out of bed, and joining us, Marty.
All right, Shane. Thank you.
That's marvelous. Marty Pallman from the PrepZone.com also does a lot of color for the Gator Radio Network for softball. We appreciate him taking the time. Going to take our final time out, come back, wrap up this Thursday edition.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, won't back down. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise. QC Kinetics, live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Great Clips, it's gonna be great. Our Gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Celebration Point Town Center, South State Bank, Chris Doring Mortgage, Silverback Concrete Co. Some of our touchdown sponsors are MB Listing, McDonald's of Gainesville, My IT Masters, Gainesville Neon and Signs, 84 Lumber, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, Avera and Smith, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods, Ruse Ogra Agent, State Farm Insurance, Silver Cube Billiards and Sports Bar. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, visit potupwithshane.com and click the Advertise button. Again, thank you to all the great businesses that support the show. If you like what we are doing here, make sure you follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Welcome back to the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, celebration points where the Gators go to celebrate with premium brands like Nike, Regal Cinemas, Lake Macaron, Bass Pro Shops, International Diamond Center, Prime and Pearl, and the HBC's restaurant, Spurs Gridiron Grill. Now serving brunch on Saturday and Sundays. We'll see you at Celebration Point where the Gators go to celebrate. I want to thank Brent Beaird and Marty Pallman joining us on the Titan MR Hotline. This Day in Sports brought to you by our good friends at Comfort Temp. Comfort is our business. Peace of mind is our promise. Comfort Temp's given $1,000 qualified positions. Give them a call, 352-376-2366. This Day in Sports in 1991, Eddie Sutton becomes the first NCAA basketball coach to take 4 different schools to the NCAA tournament. That happened in 1991, brought to you by our good friends at Comfort Temp. Don't forget Gators tip today at noon, a big game to keep their March Madness hopes alive against the Aggies. Fun-filled day, a lot of stuff going on. If the weather is bad, just sit in your recliner and watch sports all day with basketball and golf, hopefully. Before we get out of here, my man Andy says, Shane, more accolades for your beloved South Dakota State Jackrabbits. Yes, they're my beloved. Mark Wise named them his team of the week on his radio show yesterday. See, I do have a good eye for good teams, and they're a good team now, and you got to love their nickname, the Jackrabbits. So anyway, I hope y'all enjoyed today's program. We appreciate Brent Beaird and Marty for joining us. Stay safe out there, folks. We will see you tomorrow.
Trying to get the fans fired up. 2nd down and 10. Matthews rolling to his right, in trouble, can't find anyone. Now he throws it for Harrison Houston, who makes the catch. He's in the open field. Harrison to the 20. They're not going to catch him. Touchdown, Gators!